I want to ask you something before we begin. Close your eyes for a moment. Picture an apple. A red apple. Can you see it? Is it in your mind? Vivid and clear? Most of you said yes. Some of you said something like yes, sort of a vague impression. And a small number of you just experienced something strange. You tried. You knew what an apple looked like. You know it is red. You know it is round. But there was nothing there. No image. No picture. Just knowledge, floating in darkness. If that last description is you, you are not broken. You have what neuroscientists call aphantasia. And you are about to become the most important person in this lecture. Aphantasia is the inability to form voluntary mental images. When asked to picture something, the mind's eye simply does not produce a picture. It was formally named and studied by Professor Adam Zaman at the University of Exeter in 2015, though the phenomenon was first described by scientist Francis Galton all the way back in 1880. Roughly 2 to 5% of the population has aphantasia. Many of them live their entire lives without knowing it is unusual because the inside of your mind is not something you can compare directly with another person's. They assumed everyone experienced memory and imagination the way they did. At the other extreme is hyperphantasia. People with hyperphantasia experience mental imagery so vivid it approaches actual perception. They close their eyes and see the apple as clearly as if it were sitting in front of them. Some find it difficult to distinguish mental images from real ones. Most people fall somewhere between these two extremes, a spectrum of inner visual experience, ranging from nothing at all to almost photographic. Here is where it gets scientifically interesting and creates a problem for standard memory theory. The dominant model of memory in neuroscience for most of the 20th century was reconstructive. The brain, in this model, stores fragments of past experience and reassembles them when you try to remember something. Memory is not a recording. It is a reconstruction. You rebuild the past from pieces each time you access it, which is why memories can shift and change over time, and why eyewitness testimony is notoriously unreliable. The visual component of this reconstruction was considered central. When you remember your mother's face, the standard model says your brain is rebuilding a visual representation using the same visual processing systems that handle real perception. Brain imaging studies confirm this. When people with typical imagery recall visual memories, their visual cortex lights up. The brain is running something like a simulation of seeing. But then there are people with aphantasia. Their visual cortex does not activate the same way during memory recall. The visual reconstruction mechanism is genuinely reduced or absent. Brain imaging confirms this. It is not that they're doing the same thing less vividly. They're doing something measurably different. And here is the finding that changes everything. Despite this, people with aphantasia remember normally. Studies by Zaman and other researchers confirm that aphantasic individuals perform at normal or near normal levels on episodic memory tasks. They accurately remember facts, sequences, the order of events, spatial layouts, emotional content, and autobiographical information. They know what happened yesterday. They know their mother's face well enough to recognize her instantly, even though they cannot picture her. They are remembering without reconstructing visual images. So, if the reconstruction mechanism is absent and memory still works, what exactly is memory accessing? Standard neuroscience does not yet have a complete answer to that question. The honest position in the field is that aphantasia has revealed a gap in our understanding of how memory actually works. Consciousism proposes an answer, and it is grounded in the same framework that explains time, consciousness, and the nature of the self. Memory is not reconstruction. Memory is access. The past does not exist as a collection of fragments stored somewhere in the brain, waiting to be reassembled. The past exists as information in the informational field, the second tier of reality in the Consciousism model, more fundamental than the physical brain itself. When you remember something, your consciousness is not rebuilding a copy of the past. It is reaching back into the informational structure where the past actually persists. The brain is not the storage device. The brain is the access mechanism. the tuner, not the broadcast. The instrument through which consciousness reaches into temporal information that exists independently of any particular physical substrate. This is why aphantasia does not destroy memory. The visual reconstruction system in the brain is one particular channel of access, one particular way of interfacing with temporal information. When that channel is absent or reduced, other channels compensate. The information is still there. The past is still there. The access route is different, not the destination. People with aphantasia are not accessing a degraded version of the past. They are accessing the same past through a different interface, which means the past they are accessing is not inside their brain. It is somewhere the brain can reach regardless of which access mechanism is functioning. This connects directly to the temporal subjection theory at the heart of Consciousism. If memory were simply stored images in the brain, then the past would be nothing more than biological records, subject to decay, distortion, and eventual erasure. Your past would be as mortal as your neurons. But if memory is the conscious stream accessing actual temporal information in the informational field, then the past has a different ontological status. It persists, not as a recording that can be damaged or lost, as information encoded in the structure of reality itself, accessible by consciousness in multiple ways through multiple mechanisms. The temporal subjection theory proposes that time is not a river carrying us forward, but a field of informational states that consciousness navigates. The present is where the conscious stream currently rests. The past is where it has been. And the information of those past positions does not simply vanish because the present has moved on. Aphantasia provides empirical evidence for this model. If memory required the brain to reconstruct images, then destroying or impairing the image reconstruction system would impair memory. It does not. Memory persists through different access routes because what memory accesses is not inside the brain to begin with. Think about what this means for the people in your life who have died. You remember them, not as a reconstruction your brain assembled from fragments, as something real that your consciousness can still reach. The information of who they were, how they moved, what they sounded like, what it felt like to be near them, that information is not stored in neurons that will eventually stop firing. It is encoded in the temporal structure of reality itself. You are not remembering them. You are reaching them, across time, through the informational field that consciousness has always been able to navigate. This is why grief feels like presence and not simply like absence. You are not imagining the person who is gone. You are accessing them. The channel is different from what it was when they were alive, but the destination is the same. A person with aphantasia who loved someone deeply and lost them cannot picture that person's face, but they know it. They reach it. They feel the presence of someone the visual reconstruction system cannot show them. That reaching is not a failure of memory. That reaching is what memory actually is. The brain is not where the past lives. The past lives in time. And consciousness, regardless of which access mechanisms the brain provides, has always known how to find it.